Isn't it just incredible? You think about these ancient peoples, worlds apart, no phones, no internet, nothing. And yet, they're asking the exact same big questions we are. What happens when we die? How are we supposed to live? It really makes you wonder if they tapped into something universal, you know?
It absolutely does. And what's really striking and what we're diving into today are the similarities in some of their answers. We're
Yeah.
taking a trip back, way back into the ancient world, looking at some really compelling ideas about morality, about the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. We've got quite a lineup. We'll be looking at Plato, his myth of from Greece. Then we'll sort of untangle the whole karma concept from India. And finally, that really dramatic scene, the judgment before Matat in ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm. And our goal here really is to pull out the core insights. What can these old stories tell us about ethics, responsibility, this enduring human search for meaning? We want to make these profound ideas accessible, give you a kind of shortcut without getting totally bogged down in like heavy academic language.
Right. A clear path through some deep territory. And we'll even bring in a few other perspectives, maybe from other spiritual traditions, maybe a bit of archetypal psychology, just to see if that sheds any extra light. Okay, let's get into it. Starting with Plato, ancient Greece, the myth of
Okay, so this story, it pops up right at the end of Plato's Republic. It's about this warrior, He dies in battle, but then, surprise, he comes back to life. And he brings back this incredibly detailed account of what he saw in the afterlife. He describes this judgment process. Good souls, the just ones, they go upwards, rewarded. The unjust, they face purification downwards. And this cycle lasts 1,000 years for each group.
1,000 years, wow, like a cosmic timeout almost.
Okay.
But the really mind-bending part comes next, right? After the 1,000 years?
That's right. That's when things get really interesting. The souls all gather together on this sort of vast cosmic field. And they get to choose their next life. It's like a massive menu of possible destinies laid out before them.
Choose your own adventure, Afterlife edition. What kinds of choices are we talking about?
Oh, everything. Human lives, animal lives, lives of immense power, lives of, quiet humility. It's all there. But Plato makes a key point here. He says many souls make really poor choices. They're driven by vanity, maybe nostalgia for past glories, without thinking through the consequences.
Yeah, I remember that bit. Like the guy who was a tyrant grabs the chance to be a tyrant again instantly, doesn't even stop to think about the misery involved, just sees the power. It's kind of sadly familiar, isn't it? Maybe like chasing status online today without thinking deeper.
Exactly, that kind of impulsive, short-sighted choice. But then Plato contrasts this with the wiser souls, souls who seem to have learned something from their past suffering. They choose more carefully, more discerningly.
So wisdom is key. How does Plato frame that?
He brings in the spindle of necessity, this giant cosmic spindle representing the unchangeable laws of the universe. And the fates are there, too, spinning the threads. It emphasizes this idea of cosmic balance, of order.
Okay, so boiling it down, what are the main takeaways from story?
Well, first, moral choice is paramount. Our actions matter profoundly. Second, this idea of reincarnation, or at least the soul continuing its journey. Third, personal responsibility. Even within this cosmic setup, you are responsible for the life you choose. And finally, wisdom. Wisdom isn't just nice to have, it's essential preparation for the soul.
Right. Plato basically says the soul's free to choose, but you need wisdom to choose well. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? How often do we choose based on fleeting desire versus, real long-term wisdom?
It's a constant challenge. Okay, let's shift gears now. Head east to India, the doctrine of karma. This is huge, obviously. Foundational in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism. A different angle, but some interesting parallels, too.
Okay, karma. Law of action and consequence drives the whole cycle of samsara, birth, death, rebirth, over and over. Is that the gist?
That's the core of it, yes. But what's really distinct here, especially compared to Plato or Egypt, is that there isn't really a final divine judge handing out sentences. The consequences are, well, they're baked into the actions themselves. It's more like a natural law. Cause and effect. You sow something, you reap it. Simple as that, in principle.
So it's not God saying, you were bad, go here. It's more like touching a hot stove. The burning is the natural result.
Precisely. A really good analogy. The idea is that desire, ignorance, attachment, these are the fuels that keep the engine of samsara running. The soul, the Atman or Jiva, keeps traveling through these lifetimes because it's caught up in this web of wanting and not understanding the true nature of reality.
And the way out isn't necessarily about getting a good rebirth next time.
Not primarily, no. The ultimate goal is liberation. Moksha in Hinduism, nirvana in Buddhism. It means getting off the merry-go-round altogether, breaking free. And the path there involves things like ethical living, meditation, self-control, and especially detachment, letting go of those cravings.
So karma isn't just cosmic scorekeeping, reward, and punishment. It's more like this continuous unfolding, this moral physics.
Exactly. Continuous moral causation. Reincarnation is just assumed. Liberation is possible, but it requires work, particularly dissolving the ego, which is seen as the root of all that clinging and suffering. That's a key difference, the focus on ego dissolution.
It does feel different, doesn't it? Less about external judgment, more about internal mechanisms. Does that shift the feeling of responsibility?
Perhaps it makes it more intrinsic. It certainly highlights how interconnected everything is. Your actions create ripples, effects that keep going.
Yeah, that idea of interconnectedness, it resonates. How even small things we do might echo out. It's quite profound.
It really is. It puts a heavy emphasis on awareness in our actions, even our thoughts. Okay, ready for another journey? Let's go to ancient Egypt. The Judgment of Ma'at.
Ah, yes, the famous one. The scales, the feather. Tell us about the Hall of Ma'at.
Okay, picture this. The deceased soul enters this grand hall, stands before Osiris and a panel of 42 other divine judges. But the absolute central moment is the weighing of the heart which they believed held your conscience, your true character. It's placed on one side of a huge golden scale, and on the other side, a single ostrich feather, the feather of Mahat.
Mahat representing truth, justice, cosmic order, right.
Precisely, the fundamental order of the universe. And the outcome of this weighing determines everything.
And the stakes couldn't be higher. If your heart was light as the feather.
Then you passed. You were declared true of voice and granted passage to the field of reeds, basically the ejection paradise, an eternal afterlife of bliss.
But if it was heavy, weighed down by sin and wrongdoing,
Then, your heart was immediately devoured by Amit, this terrifying creature, part crocodile, part lion, part hippo, the devourer of the dead.
yeah.
And that was it. Obliteration, second death, no afterlife. So for the Egyptians, this wasn't just symbolic poetry. Your soul's integrity had a literal, measurable weight.
Wow. It sounds terrifying. What a motivator to live right. And there were those confessions too, right? The 42 negative confessions.
Yes, exactly. Before the weighing, the soul had to recite these, declaring they hadn't committed various sins. I have not stolen, I have not killed, I have not lied, I have not caused pain. It was like a final purification, a demonstration that you understood and had tried to live in accordance with Matt.
It's striking how many of those don't steal, don't kill, don't lie are still the absolute basics of ethics everywhere today. Seems like some things are truly timeless.
They really do seem to be.
Yeah.
So the key themes from Egypt, the absolute importance of ethical purity, this idea of a divinely ordered cosmos governed by truth, Matt, judgment as a reflection of that cosmic harmony, and living your life aligned with that truth.
That idea of truth having actual weight, what does that suggest to you about our own lives, our daily actions, maybe even our hidden intentions?
It implies they all matter, don't they? That integrity isn't just an abstract concept, but something with real substance, real consequence in the grand scheme of things.
It's just fascinating how, despite being totally separate cultures, these common threads keep surfacing.
It really is remarkable, this idea that your actions in this life ripple out beyond death. That's loud and clear in all three, wouldn't you say? Plato's judgment and choice, karma's ongoing consequences, Egypt's weighing of the heart, moral accountability beyond the grave.
Definitely. And they all seem to describe these symbolic journeys, too. Not just physical travel after death, but the soul's journey towards, what? Wholeness, understanding.
I think so. Journeys of growth, learning from mistakes, maybe course correcting. It's like they're mapping the soul's potential path, the inner landscape.
And underlying it all is this belief that the soul, or some essential part of us, persists. It carries the imprint of our choices, whether into a new life like in Plato or India, or into an eternal state determined by judgment like in Egypt.
Right. There's continuity. And that leads back to the importance of inner preparation.
Yeah, being ready. The Egyptians needed that light heart. Plato's souls needed wisdom for the big choice. Indian philosophy points towards detachment. Different methods, but all aimed at purifying or refining the inner self.
Exactly. And if we look at these through, say, a psychological lens like archetypal psychology,
How would that work?
well, you could see Plato's myth as a metaphor for the inner battle we all face, right? Between the ego, with its short-term demands, and the deeper authentic self striving for wisdom. The choices on that cosmic field mirror our everyday choices.
Okay, I see that. And karma. How might that translate psychologically?
Karma could be seen like the psychological shadow, maybe. Those unacknowledged parts of ourselves, the unresolved issues, they keep creating the same patterns in our lives, repeating until we finally become aware and integrate them, like sowing and reaping on an inner level.
That makes sense, like recurring relationship problems or self-sabotage until you figure out the root cause within yourself.
Precisely. And the Egyptian weighing of the heart. That's almost a direct parallel to confronting your true self, isn't it? Aligning yourself with a core principle of truth, Mahat, or what Jung might call the self, the psyche's organizing center.
So these ancient myths aren't just about what happens later. They're guides for living now, for integrating our own inner judges, our own sense of truth.
Absolutely. They offer frameworks for ethical living by encouraging us to examine our inner lives, our motivations, our impact.
It's also interesting just how different the details are, even with the common threads, if we sort of compare them directly.
Right, look at the judgment mechanism itself. Plato has divine judges plus the soul's own choice. Karma is this impersonal natural law. Egypt has this very vivid, ritualistic weighing against the feather. Very different flavors.
And rebirth. Plato has it, based on choice. India has it, more automatic, driven by karma. Egypt. Not so much focus on rebirth, more on that one final judgment for eternity.
Exactly. And the ultimate goal shifts too. Plato, choose wisely, live justly. India, escape the whole cycle, liberation. Egypt, achieve harmony, join the divine order.
Even agency feels different. Plato really emphasizes the soul's freedom to choose. India, it's more about agency through detachment. Egypt feels more dependent on living righteously to meet that final standard.
Yeah, and the overall tone. Plato feels, philosophical, mythic. India is more systematic, metaphysical. Egypt is deeply ritualistic, symbolic.
It really shows the richness, the diversity of how humans have tried to make sense of it all, but still, that core message.
It echoes through, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's why these stories still grab us thousands of years later. They speak to those fundamental, human questions about meaning, consequence, how we should live.
So at the end of the day, whether it's choosing wisely, understanding karma, or making your heart light, the underlying message seems clear.
Live ethically. Seek truth however you understand it. Prepare the soul. Look after your inner life.
It certainly puts our own choices into perspective.
Definitely. What happens after we die? Who knows for sure? But these ancient traditions offer such powerful, enduring wisdom for how to live before we find out. They push us towards balance, towards awareness, towards maybe making our own hearts light enough to fly. It really makes you think about the weight of your own actions, big and small.
A truly profound thought to end on. So as you go about your week, maybe consider how these ancient ideas might resonate with your own compass, your own sense of right and wrong. Do they offer any guidance for navigating today's world? What would it mean for you personally to make your heart light enough to fly? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.